and gasoline, and most things in between. I rode the city in a shopping cart, a pack of camels and a smoke alarm. This night is heating up, raise hell and turn it up. Say if you go on, you might pass out in a train pipe. Oh yeah, so threaten me with the good time.
All right,
let's do threat level red.
Threat
Let's
level
talk
red.
some Carnage. Talk some Carnage.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Source Material Podcast. That's right. We are here this evening to discuss, man, we've been talking a lot of Spider-Man. As a matter of fact, the episode that just dropped today, since we're recording early here, the episode that just dropped today was our discussion on Spider-Man #1, written by Nick Spencer.
Also known as Mark is Wrong.
And we were kind of discussing what led up to this, and it turns out the very stories that we're going to be talking about tonight are what occurred prior to Spider-Man #1. This storyline was actually suggested by one of my former podcast pals, the guy that got me into podcasting, my former sensei of podcasting, the man who brought me into it. His name is Jayson Teasley. Jayson Teasley, welcome back to Source Material, my man. It's been too long, bro. What's the haps? What's been going on with you?
Wow, it is a pleasure to be back on Source Material. Like we was talking off air, I don't really recall the last time I got to record a Source Material podcast, but I'm sure it was something spectacular because I was a part of it.
That's right.
So I only come out for the big. I only make guest appearances for the big shows.
That's good.
But since then, we shut down from the cheap seats. That was a bittersweet pill to swallow.
Mm-hmm.
And I went on hiatus. Got married. Then the wife said that I need to do something with my time again, and I got approached to resurrect my fantasy football knowledge. So I actually became part of the W2M network.
Yeah.
And resurrected a fantasy football cast over there, as well as, just by, I guess, luck, I am actually the fourth chair on the Kickoff, their NFL and college football show over there. So I got back into podcasting, but of course I always come back to my roots here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network, and I get to hang out with one and a half of my best friends. And
I don't know which one's the half, Ronnie. I'm going to say it's you.
Or both of us are 3/4 of a friend.
We're doing math.
Don't do math. It hurts.
No, this is a learning show.
The half is both of y'all's a quarter. I get to hang out with myself.
Oh, you're my best friend.
And talk about Carnage. So
that's right, man. Okay, so Ronnie Adams, just say hi so everybody recognizes your voice and knows who you are. There he is, Ronnie Adams with the Screaming Boy podcast. Teasley, we were looking for books to talk about, and you mentioned this story tonight that we're going to be talking about. What is the name of this story, and why did you want to talk about it?
Well, the first arc that we're going to be covering is called Threat Level Red. It's a nice little arc. It's an introductory arc of a big event, this year in the Spider-Man universe. It was kept under wraps until the very first issue, which was 794, was released. A lot of people speculated what might be going on. Nobody seen what actually happened coming. Our friend Jordan Lowe of Asylum Comics, actually, once it released, he shot me a message. He was like, "Oh my God, I know you're a huge Carnage fan. You have to pick up this arc. I don't have any in stock right now, and I won't have any first runs till 96. He said, I'll have you second runs. I'll start you a pull list on them. This is something that's going to be right up your alley. I was like, awesome, thanks, So much love to Asylum Comics and Jordan Lowe over at the Kapow podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, cheap plugs for them. But then our friend Josh Calanders was like, "Oh my God, you're a huge Carnage fan. You have to read this arc. This is all about what I vision you wanting to read a Carnage arc but I was given very minimal details. I was just told that it involved Carnage, and it was a must read for me. So obviously, anything involving the Carnage symbiote, not whatever they say in the Venom trailer.
Symbiote.
Well, okay. Since we're crossing this bridge, we're going to cross it together. We're going to hold hands.
And then we're going to tear it down, burn it, salt the ground that it was on.
We're going to hold hands across this bridge, and we're going to look everybody in the face, all right? So right now, just to let all of our podcast listeners know, we are going to pronounce this word 9 different ways tonight. And your job as a listener is to go, okay, I can handle that. I will gladly let it slide. So, first off, Ronnie Adams, how do you pronounce it?
Symbiote.
Okay. Now, hold on. You just pronounced it 2 different ways. Are you trying to cover yourself?
It's a long O or a long. Shut up. It is a long O or a soft O, but a lot of people pronounce it symbiote.
You're going to go symbiote. Now the lady in the Venom trailer, how did she pronounce it?
Symbiote.
She pronounced it symbiote or symbiote?
Mm-hmm. Oh, symbiote. That's what it's.
Symbiote.
Yeah, symbiote.
Okay. Yeah. Now me myself,
and she can burn in hell.
There's listen, I love you, Jayson Teasley, but there's no N in that word anywhere.
Well, hold on.
Nowhere is there an N.
Let me at least, we're holding hands, okay? Ronnie Adams?
No, I've already jumped off the bridge.
Ronnie's about to get thrown off the bridge.
No. I've been wanting to tell you this
We're holding hands. We're holding hands.
He's about to get Gwen Stacy.
Now, listen, I will pronounce it this evening as symbiote. All right, now, I think that's how I will pronounce it. And Teasley, you pronounce it however you want. All right, because we are all holding hands here. All right, so
I don't know. I'm not holding your hand.
Squeeze it tighter. I've got a hold of you, Ronnie Adams.
Here's the deal. I will for continuity and for reader's sake, I will say symbiote.
Well, I'm not saying we're all going to be saying it as one. I'm saying we're all going to hold hands and be accepting as the other person.
Try.
And because I'm not going to be able. Apparently, it's been pronounced in film. If we're going to call symbiote canon, all right, then
I told you that lady should go to hell.
Listen, you leave her alone. She's dating Captain America in real life.
Oh, is she really?
I don't care.
Oh, well,
he's not Ryan Reynolds.
Can't deny it. So, Teasley,
he's not.
How would you like to pronounce it this evening?
Symbiote.
All right. Now, here's the thing. If you cross the border and go to some other place, it's okay. I've got your back. I know Ronnie Adams has got your back.
I want to see your papers before you cross the border.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to know if you have anything to declare, and I just might take you to jail away.
I'm building a wall, so there's no border crossing.
Oh my goodness, he will build a wall. All right, so we've all got that out of the way. Okay, we're not going to.
We got politics out of the way.
We are not going to disparage anybody on how they pronounce this because, hey,
yes, we will.
It's apparently pronounced any way that we want, as long as we get it across that we're talking about the Carnage red goo. All right.
Let's just call them the gooey aliens.
The gooey. I don't think that'll work. We decided threat level red. Now that was up to about what, yesterday or the day before? I think it was yesterday. When
I was up to yesterday. I accidentally called you.
Yeah. I was like, I think we may really want to go down swinging along with this. So if anybody out there has read Spider-Man or is in the process of reading Spider-Man, the issues we're going to be talking about tonight run from 794 to 800. So we're going from issue 794, which 794, 795, and 796 are threat level red. And then the real meat of this story is the next 4 issues out of that. So anyway, we're going to do threat level red. We're going to do go down swinging parts 1 through 3, and then we're going to talk issue 800 because man, oh man, there's a lot of great stuff happen and some. I mean, really. eventful issue. It's really an eventful issue, so we'll cover that separately as well, and then we'll talk about things. So, Ronnie Adams, I mean, are you reading Spider-Man? Are you staying current with it, or how are you doing?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I know we just did number 1, so I assume that you have been reading at least everything that's come out up to this.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
well,
I read the entire Threat Level Red and Go Down Swinging and everything.
So this is Dan Slott. His last storyline, basically, for The Amazing Spider-Man. He is, as we're approaching issue 800, I think the writing is on the wall that he is going to be done with Spider-Man. And this guy wrote Amazing Spider-Man, I want to say, for close to 10 years. Let me look at this real quick. Am I right, Ronnie, or do you know for sure?
Right around there, yeah, I do believe.
I'll look it up here real quick just to make sure. I know. Well, let's look at this. I mean, he was penning tales. Amazing Spider-Man 546 to 548, 559, 561, 564, 568 to 573, 581, 582, 590, 591, 600. So, I mean, dude, 600 to and then 618 to 621, 67. I mean, he wrote pretty consistently for this title, and a lot of people, matter of fact, I think I was just talking to Evan Bevins, was talking about how if it wasn't for Dan Slott, he probably would have jumped ship on Spider-Man a long time ago, because another callback to what we just discussed there on the Spider-Man #1 podcast, One More Day left a very, very sour taste in a lot of people's mouths, and they were not liking the way Amazing Spider-Man was headed. Dan Slott takes over, and now the stories that are in there are definitely more palatable. A lot of people are more excited about some of the stories that are being told, and they're not better stories. They're stories about that kind of satiate what Mark Radulich was talking about and upset about with that new issue of Spider-Man, about how it's, we talked about Parker Industries. The Parker look kind of takes a step back, and he's doing really well for himself. He's got all these costumes that he's making up, and he's a graduate, and all these neat things Dan Slott implemented with the character, okay? Here we are coming towards the end of his run on Spider-Man. I imagine, like a lot of writers, you have something that's in your back pocket, and you're waiting to. This is that story. This is that story that you're going to use that's going to be your swan song on a title. If you wanted to tell a story about Amazing Spider-Man, this is it. And I have a feeling that is what Threat Level Red and Go Down Swinging are for Dan Slott. I don't know if that's the case, but I'll tell you right now, the story that we're going to get into, very, very compelling, and it's very impactful for Spider-Man himself. Not only that, I think the consistent artist throughout these two arcs is Mike Hawthorne. Appears to have done Threat Level Red, according to what I see here.
Oh, yeah, that's old man Hawthorne's son. Good get.
Pencilers for Go Down Swinging Amazing Spider-Man Volume 1, 797 is Stuart Eminem, which is a name I've heard a lot of. Let me see if he's throughout.
Oh, that's Eminem's old boy.
Eminem's old boy?
Yeah. They go way back.
I've already given up.
8 Mile Road?
Yeah,
all right.
They go back to 8 Mile. They grew up together on 8 Mile.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, Stuart Eminem. All right.
That's whose mouth spaghetti that he ate.
Threat Level Red. Like I said, I'm going to go ahead and synopsis this. We'll throw out some talking points, BS a little bit, and then we'll move on. All right, so the beginning of Threat Level Red, when a couple of hired specialists break into a holding facility called the Lockbox that contains a great deal of potential weapons, a chain of events ensues that releases the Zodiac Key to return to its former master, Scorpio, just as he reemerges from a dimension that he was trapped in. Luckily, Spidey was able to keep the reunion short, and with some help from Mockingbird and a few others, they ended Scorpio's plans. However, Scorpio left with a warning. After being in the Zodiac dimension, he was made aware of the events of the unfolding year, that something is coming to tear Spider-Man's world apart. The next issue, Pete has finally found an apartment after leaving Mockingbird's couch and trying to look at the bright side of things. The Sorcerer Supreme, Loki, notices Peter's plight and invites him to the Sanctum Sanctorum to offer some help. Untrusting, as he should be, Spider-Man rejects his offer, but accidentally lets loose some magic wasps that wreak havoc on the city. Attempting to stop the crisis, Pete pleads with Loki to reverse time, and he does so. We find that it may have been a setup by Loki, but I have no idea for what purpose. My guess is just to be the trickster, as he always is. The third issue brings in Agent Anti-Venom. So let's stop real quick. I want to go ahead and talk about Agent Anti-Venom. Ronnie Adams, you know much about this character? Because we get some reveal as to who he is, obviously, but have you ever read anything with him in it?
I know who Anti-Venom is, and I know who Agent Venom is, but I was not familiar with Agent Anti-Venom.
Yeah.
I hadn't really, even though I've been reading Spider-Man, I don't remember him showing up in Spider-Man very often or at all before this.
Agent Venom was, who was that?
That was Flash.
Flash Thompson, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's who we got here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. At some point...
Venom has since gone back to Eddie Brock.
Okay. Anti-Venom, I think I've read maybe one or two issues with him in it. So I don't know how the two came together either.
Flash was suffering from paralysis or something.
Well, I know didn't he lose his legs?
Lost his legs serving.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so he lost
in the armed forces.
and they found him. And
They found his legs? Lieutenant Dan, you lost your legs.
Lieutenant, it's actually Corporal Thompson got his legs back. But it was something with the black suit formed a spawn that bonded with Flash to help him.
Well, he was Agent Venom after he lost his legs, too. That's how he served. Part of the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, like he was out in space.
Yeah.
And he had
he was big time as Agent Venom.
And the point where I was reading it was where the suit was starting to like try and take over a little bit on him, but he was trying to keep it in check. But yeah, it helped him. Obviously, he was using the suit so he could be mobile again. He didn't, he grew his legs. So mobile. So in these issues right here, Flash Thompson is Agent Anti-Venom. Now, what we see, just to give everybody, imagine Venom, but reverse the colors. So it's a white suit, black spider. He also has like a healing touch. He can use the suit. The suit can heal people. I think the first introduction we have is like there's a cop laying on the ground, and the cop was shot, I think, and he runs over there, puts his hand down, and apparently heals it. So the third issue brings in Agent Anti-Venom, and we see Spider-Man working and taking direction from J. Jonah Jameson, which, yep, I haven't read Spider-Man for a while. I mean, JJJ knows Spider-Man's Peter Parker. He's like almost, if you want to do a DC comparison, he's like the Oracle for Spider-Man, sending him out on missions, helping him go.
He's basically Spider-Man's conscience, the voice in his head.
Pretty much. I mean, because he's there yelling at him to do this, that, and the other. But, I mean, wow, what a role reversal we got here with him. I know at one point, I think JJJ was mayor, so that might have been a while back. But this was different for me. I mean, Ronnie, you got any insight?
He was running a blog. Okay. Trying to smear Spider-Man still.
I think he's still
running the blog.
Yeah.
And then like Peter Parker confronted him and as Spider-Man and showed him that he was he was who he was, and kind of just rocked his world. And then he became a fan.
They look at him and go, "Rock me, Amadeus! Rock me, Amadeus!"
Anyway,
I think that's exactly what he said.
That's how I'm visioning going down.
Oh, Lord.
With subtitles.
Oh, yeah.
Because nobody knows what that song says. It's just a bunch of mumbling till everybody chimes in on the chorus and sings along with Rock Me Amadeus.
I don't see JJJ being a fan of that type of music, but hell, you never know. You just never know.
I picture him being a flock of seagulls kind of guy.
I don't know, man. I see cigars, whiskey, and like classical music. So Amadeus may be somehow. Exactly, he says. Exactly.
What is happening right now?
Teasley's derailing a podcast as usual.
I say that a lot on this show, but I'm sincerely confused.
All right.
Who thought in a podcast involving Spider-Man, Venom, in Carnage that we would talk about Flock of Seagulls and Rock Me Amadeus.
Oh, rabbit holes all over the place. I mean, you step into the source material yard, you might as well just go ahead and grab some crutches because you're going to sprain your ankle in a big rabbit hole. You may fall down one, as Jayson Teasley does quite often. He's going to take you with him. All right, so during a press conference organized by Alchemax's own Liz Allen, Peter, Mary Jane, and Flash Thompson all find themselves at the center of a heist by the current Hobgoblin, or Goblin King, whatever have you, Phil Urich. Which happens to be Ben Urich's nephew, who intends to steal an Alchemax power source, a highly explosive metal called tritium. Spider-Man and Agent Anti-Venom, swing into action against Hobgoblin, and the rest of his Goblin army. Unfortunately, the Hobgoblin was able to escape with some of the tritium, and we last see Peter as he pays a visit to MJ, and she persuades him to stay for dinner. Now we really haven't talked about the big parts. I mean, we have these stories going on throughout these issues, these things that Spider-Man has to deal with. But throughout the background, the two specialists that we begin this story with come in near the end to deliver Norman Osborn an encased jar of red goo that just so happens to be the Carnage symbiote. Bonding with the symbiote, Carnage appears to overpower Norman. After killing the same people that brought him the symbiote, Norman is able to regain control, making the symbiote a promise that he can put into place a plan that may satiate his bloodlust. So here we go. This is the beginnings. Now this, I get to the end of Threat Level Red, those 3 issues, and I'm like, we need more. There's no way we're stopping here because I want to read what's going to happen between Norman Osborn and the Carnage symbiote. So clearly they're coming together and they're forming a plan. And at first it looks like Carnage is like taking over. I mean, the red symbiote is definitely looking like the Carnage of old at first. But then Norman Osborn, and you can tell they're warring with each other. Norman Osborn talks him down and says, "Okay, look, I have a plan. You'll get blood, and here's how we're going to do it." So, all right, so that's the end of Threat Level Red. We're done there. Let's start with you, Jason. You brought this to our attention. What'd you think of the story?
Threat Level Red. I mean, I think it was the perfect setup for what we'll be covering in the next half of the show here. It wasn't like overbearing. It showed multiple story arcs, with the major underlying one with the Carnage and Norman Osborn thing. Mm-hmm. But you've seen that, how Peter's life was affected and how things were being set up that would later come into play. Things like the attack, Agent Anti-Venom, the thing with MJ, mm-hmm. and everything just kind of going on as normal, what you thought. You had that underlying threat, hence the name Threat Level Red. And the fact that, I haven't read much Spider-Man. The only time I read Spider-Man is when it involves Carnage. And you see the things that have been in place, like Peter, falling on hard times, not knowing what's going on. The whole thing with him and MJ, it's like when the attack happens, he shows up and it's like, I need like my pants and keys and wallets. And she says it's out of habit. Mm-hmm. And, it's basically like, and then, they come in to have some sexy time and she gets ready to seduce him and sees he still has Spider-Man costume on because he's into role-playing fetishes, I guess.
Or he just can't change his clothes.
Obviously he could change his clothes because he put clothes on over top of it.
Okay.
But anyway, you find out MJ's the head of Stark Industries.
That's right. That's another big thing. That's
her and Peter still have that connection there. That when she said, and he starts apologizing, and she said, "I said it was old habits. I didn't say it was like something along the lines. I didn't say it was a bad, like basically implying it wasn't a bad thing. We still have this connection going on." Mm-hmm. And then you see the whole Loki thing, which totally caught me off guard. I knew that it was due to the cover I seen. I knew that he was Sorcerer Supreme, but it kind of the whole Loki thing kind of took a misstep for me because it served no real purpose driving the story along. It was basically, hey, we want to show Loki as Sorcerer Supreme. That's it. It really served no purpose because it was this little snafu for Peter to save some stranger. But instead of going back and corrected his own life. It shows the moral high ground that Peter usually takes.
Yeah. That might be the point of that story, is to kind of touch on what's happened in the past. We talk about One More Day. We've talked about some of the other stuff that's happened that people didn't really like. And he kind of mentions that to Loki when he's talking to him, like, okay, yeah, look. And Loki, he's the trickster, but it seems like he has these noble intentions here to kind of help Peter out and give him the opportunity to, hey, look, I can do just about anything you want to do here. And Spider-Man's like, no, I don't really want your help. I don't want anything to do with you. Ronnie, you got any insight as to why you think that issue occurred? Was it just a one-off adventure, or what do you think?
I have no clue, to be honest with you.
What was intriguing? There was something intriguing about it, because after everything happens, the chambermaid, whatever, his sidekick there,
not like his Wong.
Yeah, says,
not his
do you
Wang,
want me to put this?
But his Wong.
Yeah, his Wong, but not his Wang. That was a good one. She asked if she should move it back to, like, the catacombs or something.
Yeah.
It's like he set that up there just so all those things would take effect, so he wouldn't know Spider-Man or Peter or whatever.
Oh,
so
okay.
It was kind of, that's the way I looked at it, is like, it was pretty much, it was kind of a one-off saying, look, all this is about to go sideways. We throw Loki in here, show that the debts are repaid by saving the stranger. Peter can't come back to him to ask for help.
I got you. Okay.
That's the only thing that I could think is Loki already knew what was going to happen due to being able to manipulate time.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to early involve him and have Spider-Man call in that favor.
Okay. All right. Now that makes sense, because you absolutely get that sense that Loki set it up. And I was like, why are we even doing this? Why is this something? But yeah, he definitely knows something's about to happen, because at the end he's gloating over the fact that, yeah, you could have called that in, or at some point he may have been able to call that in, because who in the world would know what would happen? And then he's gazing into something, and he sees Norman Osborn with the symbiote in his hands. So he knows you're right. He knows shit's about to go down. So that was one of the notes that I had was Loki Sorcerer Supreme ? Ronnie, Mockingbird, this is the end of their relationship. Did you want that to work out for Peter and Mockingbird?
I did, but I didn't, because it's cool that he had somebody. In the long run, I just can't see him with anybody but Mary Jane. We've read comic books long enough to know how well superhero relationships last, or how long and how well they do. You either end up, separating and divorcing like Hawkeye and Mockingbird, or you end up slugging them like Hank and Janet Pym.
Yeah.
Because something always comes between them, or some evil entity takes over, or anything like that. So he needs some sort of normalcy in his life, and she's that's it. I can't really see anybody with him except for her.
Do you know much about the Hobgoblin that we get here? This is Phil Urich. Now, I want to kind of just touch on him real quick. There's been a lot of Hobgoblins, just hopping on the wiki here. I'll run them down here up to Phil Urich. Roderick Kingsley, Arnold Donovan, Ned Leeds, Jason Macendale, Daniel Kingsley, and then finally Phil Urich. What do you think of this Hobgoblin? Did you know much about him?
I actually watched, I think it was, who was the one before Urich?
Daniel Kingsley?
Maybe it was him.
Ben Kingsley?
I read some. No.
Ben Kingsley, yeah, that's him. Ben Kingsley.
I think I read some with him, and I knew Ben Urich was the current Hobgoblin too.
Phil.
Yeah, Phil. Yeah, whatever.
Boy, that would be a twist.
Yeah, what a twist.
What a twist.
But I know he's a little crazier than the others.
Yeah.
I mean, they've all been nuts, but he's pretty bat crap crazy.
That tends to happen when you become a goblin.
Yeah.
I mean, have you ever met a nice goblin?
Yes.
You have?
Can we have a whole podcast on that, please?
What, was it a turd goblin?
No.
So Phil Urich, has apparently been around since 1995. So get this. Phil Urich, Web of Spider-Man 125 is apparently his first appearance. As Green Goblin, Spectacular Spider-Man 225. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
As Hobgoblin.
Guaranteed that if they've been one goblin, they've been another.
Okay.
So it mentions he took over the mantle of Green Goblin for a while in this arc.
Okay. Then we have As Hobgoblin, which is the one that I remember reading in my introduction to this character. That's Amazing Spider-Man 649 in January of 2011. So I knew at that point the Hobgoblin would come back, and he had these, I don't know, it was like this thief / just like you said, crazy dude looking for like Green Goblin's stash of pumpkin bombs, and had this this crazy flaming sword. A laugh that was, I think it was used in that last issue of Threat Level Red, where he's got Spider-Man down on the ground and he's laughing really loud. So whatever, some kind of sonic attack. But yeah, okay. And then he becomes the Goblin Knight, and apparently Superior Spider-Man number 16, and then the Goblin King in the Amazing Spider-Man Volume 3, number 5, October of 2014. So I just want everybody to know the Hobgoblin that we're talking about here is the latest iteration. This is not somebody that you're familiar with probably prior to, clearly prior to 2011. There we go. So he gets away with the tritium, and we're getting ready to go down and to go down swinging. So, Ronnie, before I proceed, do you have anything you'd like to say about Threat Level Red?
It's a good arc. I mean, like, it's... Oh, gosh, you definitely tell you're setting up for the end game, of something big. And, of course, it pretty much screams that at you when you see what Norman Osborn is holding. So, and that got me super excited because I don't want to say, you've got his most iconic villain. Everybody knows who the Green Goblin is. His most iconic villain in the Green Goblin, one of his strongest villains, as in with Carnage, and then you're going to mix the two. I mean, and that's just a layer of crazy that nobody's ready for.
Here's my question: I cannot believe this has not been thought of before. This is something that to me I was like, Carnage has been around for how long, Teasley? What we're talking 20 some years now, or close to 20 years.
I think he debuted in I want to say in 94. Yeah,
Maximum Carnage was right around that time.
I want to say it's like March or something of 94, if I remember correctly.
Here we are, near 25 years later, and I'm like, why has this not been thought of before? The combination of the Carnage and the Green Goblin. It's one of those things where you're like, well, obviously. So, yes, this is going to be good. And we've already talked about on the podcast about how these issues, the first appearance of the Red Goblin, I think was it was definitely going up in price. I think shortly after that, shortly after it debuted, it was near in the 20s already, $20 range. So this was a brand new character that was going to come forth, and we're getting ready for it with Threat Level Red. Let's get into Go Down Swinging. So Go Down Swinging. This is like I said, we're going to do the first 3 parts, going to synopsis this, talk about anything we want to talk about, and then we'll go into 800, and we'll talk about that, and we'll be done. So our first issue starts with Norman Osborn interrogating someone. I thought this was a very neat way to tell the story, but we don't know who this person is, so we're just kind of left guessing until the end. As the story unfolds, you see how Osborn pieced some things together, leading him to capture whoever he is interrogating to find out any information that they have on Spider-Man. Interrupted by the Goblin King raiding a goblin stash of weapons, Norman goes down to confront him. As the Goblin King swings his fiery sword to kill Norman, Osborn catches it and promptly guts him. So that is the end, my friends. The death of the Goblin King happens right in front of us. So he's dead. Returning to the interrogation, the victim lets slip that the Green Goblin threw his girlfriend off a bridge. A light bulb goes off, and Norman realizes Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Boy, that was an issue right there. When you find out that it's actually JJJ he captured, and he cannot believe what he just did. The next issue, while Pete is at work at the Daily Bugle trying to pin down the missing tritium, his office is attacked by the Green Goblin. It's revealed that he has brought a bomb attached to the tritium he found with the Goblin King, and Green Goblin demands Pete find Spider-Man and make him show up. When Spider-Man shows after fighting with Green Goblin for a few, he wraps the bomb in as much webbing as he can to contain the blast. It contains some of it, but the damage is pretty extensive. Spidey then finds Green Goblin impaled on some rebar after the explosion, and giving his last words before the red fluid that Pete thought was blood morphs around Norman, and we now have the first full appearance of the Red Goblin. Spider-Man realizes he needs to escape to think his next moves against this new villain, and tries to retreat. The Red Goblin has some new weapons, though, and some very nasty, somewhat, I guess, sentient Red Goblin pumpkin bombs that he throws after Peter, and one of them catches, like, Peter right on the inside, really too close to his nuts. I'm just going to put that out there. But, like, it attaches to the inside of his leg and explodes. The Red Goblin tracks Spider-Man down somewhere in a warehouse and tells him that he will not hurt him or any of Pete's family if Peter hangs up the Spider-Man suit and agrees to never be Spider-Man again. Peter Parker agrees. Meanwhile, Agent Anti-Venom finds JJJ tied up and helps him out of wherever the Goblin had him stashed. Harry and Liz's nanny, Emma, also tranquilizes the rest of the family, kidnapping Normie and Stanley, the two children. I think both of them are, well, I don't know.
They're Harry and Liz's children.
So they're both Harry and Liz's children. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Kidnapping.
And that plays a big part in the psyche of
Norman.
later on.
Yeah.
Normie.
Kidnapping Normie and Stanley for what purposes we do not know at this point. Part 3 has Pete nursing his leg, but putting everything and everyone he knows to the task of protecting his loved ones. Agent Anti-Venom, Silk, Miles Morales, some superhero by the name of Clash. Anybody? Bueller?
No. I wish I was a little more up on my Spider-Man.
I have no idea who this dude is.
Super friends there.
Teasley, any idea about about Clash?
Yeah.
Oh boy, here we
Not
go.
a clue.
All right, Clayton Cole, here we go. This is his current alias is Clash. Clayton was a smart kid who was homeschooled by his mother. He went and saw Crusher Hogan's wrestling match and saw the first appearance of the Masked Marvel. Recording and uploading their match, he believed he made him famous because the video had over 3 million hits. Oh, wow. This is definitely a hero for our age. And this goes on forever. I should not have... let's just go ahead and we'll look at the genius, intellect, powers, and abilities. That's our powers and abilities. Genius, intellect. Academically gifted, Clayton displays an uncanny affinity for science that is nothing short of genius. He has earned many academic achievements in math. Okay, so he's really smart. He uses sonic technology. So apparently this guy is not really a...
So basically he's a Peter Parker ripoff.
Yeah, the picture they have here, he's definitely attacking Spider-Man, so apparently he may have been a
villain.
Thank you, that's what I was looking for. A villain at one point.
A heel. He's a heel.
Yes, may have been a heel at one point. Oh yeah, and the Human Torch. Forgot about the Human Torch there as well. So he's helping out. JJJ comes clean to Pete about his involvement of giving Norman Osborn information that he is Spider-Man, and Peter appears that he is not going to forgive him at all. Liz Allen goes looking for her sons, but unfortunately finds them at the train station the same time Norman / the Red Goblin does as well. Norman reveals that the nanny, Emma, who tranquilized them and kidnapped the kids, was actually his former thought-to-be-deceased wife. I mean, this is like, I'm telling you, Guiding Light or fucking Days of Our Lives.
Days of Our Lives, yeah.
Hey, you do not research the names of Days of Our Lives.
I don't want to do that, no. Norman reveals that the nanny was actually his former thought-to-be-deceased wife, Emily Lyman Osborn, which I assume is Harry's mother as well. Human Torch and the Clash show up and use a combination of fire and sound powers to wipe the symbiote out. Let's stop. Jayson Teasley.
Collaborate and listen.
Starch is back with a brand new rendition. So, listen. What we know of the symbiotes, Venom and Carnage both, what are their weaknesses?
High frequency, fire. I think that's it. I mean, just variations of sonic
loud noises.
Fire.
Human Torch and Clash belt out a combination of both what should be the Carnage symbiote's weakness.
Hold on, we got to rewind and point something out that happened in Threat Level Red issue 795.
Okay.
The Peter Parker injected Norman with these nano.
Yeah, those things that will keep the madness away.
Yeah, that prevented him from ever becoming the Green Goblin.
Yeah.
Again. Yeah, when Carnage fused with him, he said, I want rid of him. And next thing you know, you just see him expelling through projectile vomiting these things out.
At about this time, Mark Radulich shuts the book and goes away. He says, nope, can't do the vomits. Yeah, he pukes up all the nanites, and I mean, it's it helps him that way. Also, it can change his appearance.
And then he gets the Goblin Serum.
Goblin Serum. So here, with the combination of both of these things, the symbiote is immune to any type of sonic attack and immune to fire now. It's not that isn't something that hurts it like it used to.
It has all the good qualities, none of the bad.
That's right. The rest of the heroes arrive, and their battle against the Red Goblin has little to no impact, save for Flash Thompson, Agent Anti-Venom, whose touch actually burns the symbiote. As Red Goblin retreats, he is able to get the best of Agent Anti-Venom as he makes him choose. This is how he gets the best of him. He makes him choose to stay and help the others who are pretty much gravely injured. So Agent Anti-Venom plays performing triage, trying to help these other heroes, Human Torch, Miles Morales, Silk, stay alive. The Red Goblin did a number on him. So Norman Osborn finds his grandson Normie and takes him, infecting him with the symbiote. Arriving as most of his friends have fallen, Spider-Man is at a loss as to what to do next in his condition. It is then that an injured or beaten Flash Thompson reaches up and heals Pete's leg, giving new life to Spider-Man. So there we go. Go down swinging. That is our little synopsis there. We're getting geared up for 800. Jayson Teasley.
That's me.
What do you think of Norman infecting Normie?
I thought it was a very nice twist.
Yeah.
Simply because throughout the little arc there, anytime it showed Harry and the family, it was all about the other child. And Normie was always saying, yeah, you love the new baby. And he
Stanley.
was showing his,
Isn't his name Stanley?
Something like that.
Stanley.
It kind of is foreshadowing this hatred that he has inside that Carnage can bond with.
Yeah, the resentment for his dad and resentment for
the brother and the family. It gives you a little insight on, because that's what the Carnage feeds off of, is hatred and chaos and the thirst of wanting to be egotistical, maniacal, and awesome. They play on that, and it even alludes to it. The whole thing was to get Normie simply for the leverage that he can hold. That's explained later on in the issue. So I thought it was a really good twist to, lay the groundwork of the resentment and stuff, and then just let the bonding happen and just to see it come to light and just that hatred consume him.
Yeah. I really am upset, and if there's a bone I have to pick with this series or this story arc, it's the fact that we find out in the next issue that his name is not Kid Carnage, which is exactly what it should be.
Yeah, I agree.
It should be Kid Carnage. Instead, I think it becomes Goblin Child. This is kind of what we touched on there earlier, where Mary Jane and Peter Parker are together in the apartment. Ronnie, we talked about wishy-washy girlfriends and wives. As soon as she opens the shirt and sees the Spider-Man suit, she's not having any of it. Now, what do you think of that?
It's par for the course.
Okay.
In their relationship, it's Parker luck.
Okay.
She's gone through a lot of trauma with because of that Spider-Man suit. They both have. Their whole relationship has.
Not as much safety.
Anyway,
snap. And I say, snap.
So
high five myself.
That was a good one.
It's no wonder that she doesn't want anything to do with it because, it's cost her, the love of her life and, nights of terror and hurt and pain and angst and everything else. So she's, it's not surprising that she sees the costume and says, screw this, I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
And also, it just, like I said, just goes along with Parker luck.
That's true. Teasley, I want to give you the opportunity to talk about what you think of the appearance of the Red Goblin. I mean, up to this point, before we get into Go Down Swinging, we kind of see the two merge, but it looks more like Carnage. Now we get to see what the Red Goblin actually looks like after he finally appears in that blown-up building, feigning death in front of Peter Parker. What's your thoughts on the appearance of Red Goblin? Good look for this guy, or what?
I think it was a very interesting look. I'm not going to say a good look.
Okay.
But it was a very unique look. They took a lot of the aspects of the Green Goblin and tried to, kind of toy with it. I didn't like the helmets. The helmet kind of looked really odd to me. Mm-hmm. Especially with that, in the red, it looked lazy. It looked like they just they just took the Goblin suit and painted it red.
Okay.
I would have liked if they would have incorporated more of the Carnage aspect with the fact that it can manipulate its body.
Yeah.
And make weapons out of its body, rather than not have to rely on the Goblin weapons.
If you take away the Goblin weapons, then you're just got another Carnage knockoff. You've got Carnage. You don't have the Red Goblin.
But
because if you look at it,
you basically just have a Goblin knockoff.
No, you don't, because he's using the aspects of Carnage, and he's using the Goblin weapons, because he's using claws. He's creating the spikes or arrows or whatever you want to call them, things like that. So he's using aspects of both personalities of both entities in that. So if you remove the weapons if you remove the Goblin aspect of it, he's just Carnage. If you want to dip into it and look at it, he's Norman Osborn. He's the Green Goblin. He wants to keep that part of his personality. He doesn't want Carnage to take over. That was the deal that they had.
But what I'm saying is, I think they should have expounded a little bit more on the abilities that Carnage possesses. You could still incorporate the Goblin weapons, but not make them a focal point of everything like they did. It's like, because every time he's attacking, it's Goblin bombs. He's on the glider. It would have been nice to have some of the aspects. I mean, they could have blended them a little bit better.
Okay. I'll grant you that, because there are a couple moments that I did not dig the costume, but I will say on the weapons side of things, you want that Goblin feel. You want to know that is the Green Goblin in that costume, or in that symbiote. I also would say, in regards to weapons, we got the pumpkin bombs, but one of the big things that I think was pretty prevalent in the Carnage early days that I remember is how he could throw. Couldn't he throw those darts? He could throw,
expelled them from his body.
Yeah, and that becomes a big part here as we get into 800, because he uses them quite frequently. Now, that's something that I don't remember the Goblin doing a whole lot of. I know he had the pumpkin bombs, he had the glider, he had that's about the only two things that I know he had.
He shot some sort of energy or something from his fingers too, didn't he?
I want to see the eyes and the mouth. I want to see the teeth. That's what I recall Carnage being, the face, the teeth, the ooze. I don't think you get a whole lot of that. There are he uses some of that to his advantage, but you just don't see it as much as I would like to. So, but go ahead.
To me, it doesn't bother me that much, because he's not Carnage.
I know you made a point.
He's not.
You made
he's
a good
not
point.
really the Green Goblin either. He's the Red Goblin.
You made a good point. You made a good point where he was saying, "It's me. Let me take over."
Yeah.
So
there's no point in having all that stuff, because it's not Carnage.
Okay.
It's not Cletus Cassidy. And if he did have all that stuff, I would honestly be bored with it.
Okay.
All in all, I think I like the Red Goblin. It had a lot of good aspects to it. I just would have liked to seen them blend it a little bit more, especially if they would have had like the struggle of it being present a little bit, especially once he found out it was Peter. Just maybe play on that struggle, that the fact that you see it later on, but kind of hint to it a little bit earlier about the how everything ends. Just plant the seeds a little bit earlier, and not just try to do it all at once. Like
Yeah.
how they started at the beginning, then you see it at the beginning. If they would just sprinkle that out through a couple more issues, that the struggle between Carnage and Norman, if you would have sprinkled that in just a little bit more throughout the midsection, through the filler,
Mm-hmm.
and rather than just throw it in there as an ultimate resolution.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that I didn't. I think that they can improve on. One is blending the powers a little bit more, and the fact that you could have played up the struggle between them to set up how everything ends.
Okay. I think one of my favorite moments in these 3 issues is when the Red Goblin forms right before Peter's eyes as he thinks the Green Goblin's dying, and then all of a sudden, the blood comes together and we have the Red Goblin standing before Peter Parker, and you know what he's saying. Of course, they're going to bleep it out because it's Marvel Comics. They don't want to obviously put a horrible curse word in there, but he legit says, he looks at him, it's just, fuck me. I mean, he knows right then and there that he is in trouble, and that's why he gets the hell out of Dodge. Ronnie, go ahead. What'd you think of these 3 issues? I mean, I don't know if I shot it to you yet or not, but what'd you think?
Love it. I mean, it's just to finally see the Red Goblin.
Yep.
And to know that this thing, this person, this entity, this villain is going to wreak absolute hell all over Spider-Man. And it's just, it's so great.
Yeah, it's getting you ready.
Yeah.
You're ready for issue 800. All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, let's go ahead. We'll get into the final part of Go Down Swinging. Talk about issue 800 and the resolution of this story. So, all right. Things pick up with Anti-Venom, Agent Anti-Venom, who sticks to the rest of the fallen friends who are actually in a hospital, and he's trying to help them. I mean, they got beat up bad. I think that some of the doctors were running around saying that these people were crashing, like Silk was crashing, and so he has to sit around and try and help heal them, and it's pretty serious. Spider-Man finds Harry and Liz, and they try to find out just where Norman took his grandson, Normie. Although J. Jonah Jameson may be on the outs with Spider-Man, he feels responsible and takes action to try and find somebody to look after MJ, contacting Eddie Brock. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, the Lethal Protector, known as Venom. As Spider-Man arrives, their combined might is enough to repel the Red Goblin, and as he leaves, Eddie Brock gives Peter the Venom symbiote to even the playing field. Man, was that not good? When he was like, I'm tapping out, here's the suit. And Peter Parker is wearing the black suit again, the Venom suit. Just, so good.
I'm not going to lie, I kind of marked out for that.
That's good stuff, man.
I did. That got an audible cheer from me, loud enough for my daughter to come in here and think that I have been crushed by boxes.
JJJ also talks to a former Spider-Man, that of the superior variety, and Doc Ock to look after Aunt May. Now let's stop here real quick. Ronnie, didn't Aunt May and Doc Ock have a thing going?
They almost got married.
No way.
Yeah.
See, this blew my mind. When I seen Doc Ock pop in and rescue Aunt May, I was like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, I remember they had, man, that was a while back too, wasn't it? I mean, was this something?
It's been years ago.
Years.
Yeah.
He's always liked Aunt May.
Yeah, he's always had a thing for May. She's a fine woman, he says.
How dare you?
I remember even Toy Fair made fun of it.
Oh, wow. They're Twisted Toy Fair Theater or something?
Yeah. So... it's been a while, but yeah, he had a thing they had a thing for each other for a little bit. It's cool to see Otto, man, kind of being an anti-hero.
Mm-hmm.
He's been a douche his entire career, so it's kind of cool to see him, play the other role.
Yeah. Well, Doc Ock shows up at Aunt May's just after Normie, or the Goblin Child, tries to kill her. Donning the new
terrifying little thing.
Oh, no kidding. Oh, jeez. Donning the new black symbiotic suit, Spider-Man arrives at Aunt May's just as Red Goblin is leaving with Goblin Child. Fearing the worst, Spider-Man finds Aunt May okay, but cradling a severely injured Doc Ock and a nearly destroyed Spider Slayer, which that's something I haven't seen in a while either, where JJJ, who I think, did JJJ and Aunt May weren't seeing each other, were they? Am I thinking?
No.
Okay.
Aunt May and J. Jonah Jameson's dad.
That's
Mary.
right. Yes. Oh my gosh, I forgot all about that. So anyway, the Spider Slayer's in shambles. Spider-Man is really worried about his aunt. Luckily, she's okay, but Doc Ock's in bad shape as well. The Red Goblin finds his family at Alchemax. His plan to take back and run, he's going to put into place his plan to take back and run the family business, which I thought was kind of odd, but okay. He's just, hey, I'm taking the company back, and I need Liz Allen to sign over this company. It is not without resistance from his own son Harry, and after trying to kill Liz, Normie, the Goblin Child, is not at the Red Goblin's side either. When Spider-Man arrives, Norman Osborn's world is coming down around him, and he knows Peter Parker is to blame. While they take their fight to the skies, Red Goblin explains that he is going to kill all of Pete's closest friends and family, as the Carnage darts that he has littered their bodies with over the past few hours will now find a way through their body at his command and into their brains, killing them in an agonizing fashion. When Red Goblin tries to implement the plan, it fails, all thanks to Flash Thompson, who arrived just in time. It is here we find that Flash now knows, after all this time, that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Let's stop. I mean, how long has this been in play throughout Spider-Man? We're at issue 800, and Flash Thompson has been around, I'm pretty certain, since the beginning of Spider-Man. And he was always the jerk, always the bully, but all of a sudden, didn't he look up to Spider-Man at some point?
He was always a big fan of Spider-Man. That was, he of course never knew that Peter Parker was Spider-Man. He's picked on Peter Parker, but Spider-Man was his hero.
I did know that he was a huge Spider-Man fan, and that he basically tried to become a model citizen because of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And he basically wanted the accolades that he did gain throughout life was due to his admiration of Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm. I mean, even donning the Venom suit to feel probably as close as he can to his personal hero. And the other thing, the opposite side of that, Pete has probably known about Flash Thompson being Anti-Venom for quite a while, or Agent Anti-Venom, Agent Venom, whatever, for quite a while. I mean, I think he's known that. But the other thing is that I think he knew that Flash looked up to Spider-Man even well before that. And Pete has never, I don't know, as far as I know, he has not ever once come out, that's why it happens in this issue, and said, hey, look, you know that guy you look up to? Yeah, I'm Puny Parker, but I'm also Spider-Man. And that would have, you don't know what kind of impact that would have had on Flash Thompson. That would have wrecked his world, probably, because this is the Puny Parker that he pushes in the lockers. He picks on. All right, so, yes, Flash Thompson shows up, saves the day, and like I said, is here we find out that Flash now knows, after all this time, that Peter is Spider-Man. On the offensive again, the Red Goblin attacks them both, laying Flash out with a death-dealing electrifying shock. That's what you were talking about there earlier. Shock, pretty much this, like I said, it's a death-dealing electrifying shock. I'm not using that as a, that's literal. Because of this attack, Flash Thompson is now on death's door, sending Pete into a venom-filled rage. Landing a punch, sending Red Goblin clear into the sky and into Times Square. The rage is fortunately subsided when Flash's dying words telling Pete he needs to save the people as he is his friend and a hero. Red Goblin and Spidey meet in Times Square, which is probably one of the most epic places that these two guys are going to have a battle. If there was going to be any battle between these two guys, Times Square is definitely where it needs to happen. Where Red Goblin discerns that Spider-Man cares not only for those in his family and his friends, but for every innocent life out there. So, Red Goblin does what he does best, and he targets everybody, sending pumpkin bombs into the air, trying to kill everybody in Times Square. Now, Spider-Man goes into crisis prevention mode and tries to save everyone. And while he's doing this, Red Goblin takes advantage and has him down and defeated. That is until Pete figures out a way to use Norman's ego against him, telling him that the only way that this will be remembered is that Carnage killed Spider-Man, not Green Goblin. As soon as he can, Norman rips the symbiote off, and Spider-Man makes his play to keep them separated, fighting with Goblin, and finally attacking the symbiote and killing it with fire. Kill it with fire? Yes, that's exactly what Spider-Man did. He killed it with fire. The death of the symbiote leaves Green Goblin in a broken mental state. And as J. Jonah Jameson arrives with a pistol intent on ending Norman's reign of terror permanently, Spider-Man jumps in front, taking a bullet to the shoulder. As JJJ asks why, Pete tells him because he had the responsibility to do so. The aftermath of this story has Norman locked up in a cell claiming... This is strange, but hey. So Norman is locked up in a cell claiming he is Cletus Cassidy and Spider-Man is Norman Osborn, so he's not right in the head. Harry Osborn and his son Normie, or has his son Normie treated to remove the symbiote, and although it appears successful, we find out it actually did not work. At Flash Thompson's funeral, Pete eulogizes Flash by telling everyone that Flash was the hero.
In his eulogy, Parker states, Flash was a bully, but he was my bully.
Yep.
And it kind of made Parker reflect and actually own something. I'm a bully too. I make these smart-ass comments. I push people's buttons. If you look at it, me and Flash are a lot alike. We're both bullies.
Yeah.
But Peter always took the high road and never acknowledged himself as that until given the eulogy.
What'd you think of that?
It was kind of touching. I mean, I shed a tear. I mean, I'm not joking. I mean,
it was that
because it was such a turning point. Because if you look back at the history of Peter and Flash, it kind of always painted Flash as this arrogant jerk that always picked on Peter. Mm-hmm. When in reality, Peter picked on Flash just as much as Spider-Man.
Yeah. He would always have,
and Peter, like I said, he comes to terms, I'm a bully too, because I'm a smartass. I do these I push people's buttons. I make comments. I make quibs to get under people's skin. There's really, come to think of it, there's no difference than what I do as Spider-Man and what Flash was doing to me as Peter.
Mm-hmm. Ronnie, Flash and Spider-Man, what'd you think of the funeral? What'd you think of the eulogy? You got any thoughts?
Okay, we all know that Flash was Peter Parker's arch nemesis in high school, bully. Mm-hmm. But they went from that to being friends. Yeah. I remember old Spider-Man issues where Todd McFarlane was drawing them, and the Flash Thompson and Felicia Hardy were dating, and they were all hanging out together. And he was still calling him Puny Parker, but it was, it wasn't meaning.
Yeah, it was a rib.
Trying to belittle him. Yeah. It was just a rib.
Yep.
And, so they went from him thumping on him every day to being friends and him knowing that, Spider-Man, he was his hero. Spider-Man was his hero. And he gave his life to help others. Just like he was a hero all the way around in the service, as Agent Venom, as Agent Anti-Venom. So, for somebody with the background of being a bully, being Venom could have gone seriously south for him.
Yeah.
But it didn't. It was kept in check. Mm-hmm. It was something that really tore at the very being of Peter Parker, it felt like.
Teasley, we got the final showdown between Red Goblin and Spider-Man in Times Square. What'd you think about what unfolded upon the pages of Amazing Spider-Man 800 in that battle?
Oh, I thought it was great. I mean, it was very well done. It played well on Peter's hero complex about trying to save everyone no matter what. And it gives a callback to the Loki thing. He could have done anything, but he just wanted to save that one person. Yeah. I mean, that's Peter's downfall. He has a very serious hero complex that he must save everyone. And also, I think the way they played on the ego thing, I thought it was a nice twist. Like I said, I wish they would have sprinkled it a little bit more through the middle part of the story. Mm-hmm. I mean, you get it at the main beginning when they first bond, and then it's like kind of forgotten, and then all of a sudden I feel it was like a quick cop out, like, oh yeah, I can play his ego. If you would have heard, like, had that sprinkled out and, like, Peter picking up on the turmoil and then coming to that realization would have been a lot more satisfying, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to say, this is one of his oldest villains. He already knows he's egotistical. That's kind of how I took it. If they would have just brought that internal struggle, because you could have made it like a three-way dance. I think they did it beautifully. Like, Spider-Man was beat, and then it was like he actually had to use his wits
to defeat.
Yeah, dude, he's about to die. I mean, you're trying to figure out what can he do to beat this guy.
Or even without Peter saying it, like the Red Goblin getting ready to kill him, and it's, you know, just have like two panels right there. One is the red, like have the Red Goblin, and then one with the Green Goblin face rather than the Red Goblin, and then Peter pointing it out, you know, if you do this, the only thing that's going to be remembered is Carnage killed him, not the Green Goblin.
Mm-hmm.
And then have that right in the middle, and then show the struggle to buy Peter some time to start compounding on that. But like I said, I think it going down to Times Square was the right situation, right location.
Let me throw it to Ronnie. Ronnie,
thought it was well done. I thought it couldn't have really gone any other way because two of his mortal enemies, you know, I mean, Green Goblin's no slouch, not in the least.
Mm-hmm.
He's got all his weapons, he's got strength, he's got intelligence, the whole nine, and then you mix it with insanity, and then you mix it with, you know, Carnage, who's P anyway. So, in my opinion, but I mean, it was just, I thought they did it great. If you had played it any other way, as far as, you know, like I completely get where you're coming from. Don't get me wrong. I'm not just crapping on it to be crapping on it. I get what you're saying, Teasley, but if they had done that, I feel like it would have made it a little too complex. He knows Norman Osborn. He knows he wants to be the one that wants him dead. So if he just mentions it, you know, there doesn't have to be a conflict. If he just mentions it, no. It's not. They're not going to remember, you know, you killing me. They're going to remember your pumpkin bombs killing me. That he would have choked him to death, tried to choke him to death. Anything that he can do to take the glory away from Norman Osborn, he was going to do. So to me, there really didn't need to be an internal struggle between Carnage, Cletus Cassidy, and Green Goblin, and Norman Osborn. It was just he just played to that because he knows his villains. And he's known this guy forever. To me, I thought it was a really good ending. It wasn't like a cop-out to me.
Teasley, are you excited about Goblin Child?
I'm very intrigued. I'm really curious to see how that's going to play out. I'm hoping it goes the route that I have in my mind, that it's going to be like a sleeper cell type deal. And it's going to manifest over time.
Yeah.
And then something's going to happen to trigger it, like with Spider-Man. And I really think that if they can grow that, which, I mean, of course, we're not going to get, it's not a soap opera, so we're not going to, you know, 3 issues later, Normie's going to be
15
in college.
He's going to have a problem. Yeah.
So I'm, or even if they did like a flash forward arc, which would be really cool to show what's to come from this, and just show like maybe the symbiote just trying to just manifest it over time and build it, and like something like they get to the like college years, the brothers have this like big squabble, and boom, he changes back. It takes over due to the angst and anger.
Yeah,
be a good story. What is cool, instead of having it be Peter Parker, have it be Miles.
Oh yeah.
That way you keep a fresh thing, and Miles has to go to, like, Peter's already hung up the mantle and everything, and flip the roles to where it's Miles that has to take on Carnage, a new version of Carnage, and has to go to Peter to get the assistance to defeat him. And then and then you can sprinkle in the whole Harry thing of, you know, him being torn, it being his child versus it was created by his father, and having that little underlying story with Harry caught in the middle for and against Peter, the conflict between Harry and Pete, which would be really interesting, and really, so you could expound on that greatly, especially if they did it as a Miles storyline, like a future Miles storyline, rather than it being Peter.
Yeah, I like that. All right, last question, and we'll get into final thoughts. Ronnie Adams, J. Jonah Jameson has the pistol, aims it at Norman Osborn, and I assume right at his head. Peter Parker jumps in front of the bullet to take the bullet into his shoulder. What do you think?
It's classic Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
Classic. He's going, no matter who it is, no matter what they've done, he's going to be Spider-Man. He's going to, with great power comes great responsibility, and he's not going to let anybody die.
Yeah.
No matter who it is.
All right, let's get into final thoughts. Teasley, we just covered Threat Level Red, all of Go Down Swinging. Dan Slott's epic, I would call this the finale. Now, I know he wrote issue 801 after this, and I have not read it, so I don't know specifically what happens. But, I mean, this feels like what was in his back pocket, what the story that he wanted to tell and end things out on. Final thoughts, Jayson Teasley. Let us know what you got, man.
There was a little story arc back in the 90s that brought me to loving comic books. It was called Maximum Carnage. It created the love that I have for Cletus Cassidy and Carnage as a character. I think this was a very, very, very well done, updated, better Maximum Carnage story arc. This was Maximum Carnage without the convoluted crossovers.
Mm-hmm.
It was a really stripped down. You had cameos, but it was a really simplistic version of Maximum Carnage, in my opinion. And I really think that it was very well written. The illustrations were great. I really liked. Yeah. The only thing that I didn't like was sometimes the Red Goblin came off a little hokey, but it went along with the scenes that they tried to contort the drawing in, and that's what kind of got. But visually, it was great. Had a really strong storyline. It didn't beat you over the head with certain things. It had a lot of. You had your A storyline, but you also had B and C subplots that played out underneath in the background that when it came to fruition, it really had some weight to it, such as like Flash dying, such as, it had the callback to Octavius and Aunt May. It had the J. Jonah Jameson storyline that he blamed himself and he was trying to do right and fix things for Peter, and it's how it weighed so heavily on him that he almost cold-blooded killed somebody just to make things right with Peter. It had like a lot of subplots that were very nicely woven into the main story. I really like it. I'm really interested where they go forward with this whole arc. Overall, I was very pleased. I was really happy that I got to read this. I got the issues in hand. They're going toward my college fund that I'll never have. And like I said, I think it was a really good thing. And I'm really glad, like Jordan and Calanders both, immediately thought of me when they came across this arc with and put me onto it, even though, I spent a little bit more money on it than I wish I would have. But
shoot, I think 800 was what, a $10 book, if I remember correctly?
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, I think it was $10.
I picked all from 94 to 800 up for $40. So
okay, that ain't bad.
No, I mean I got them pretty much face value.
Yeah.
So I'm not too disappointed, but I mean I looked at the prices that things were going on eBay and stuff, and it was just ungodly what these books are going for.
Yeah. Well,
but like I said, very, very pleased with the art, very pleased with the storytelling, and it's very open-ended with the way. I mean, it leaves a lot of things, a lot of avenues you can go through. You can do the whole normie thing. You got other Spider-Verse players in the mix, and also you can revisit the MJ thing. Like I know it sounds like an old trope.
We
do.
We do, as a matter of fact, in Spider-Man #1.
Number one.
Yep, they are very much appearing to be coming back together. So
I mean, it's an old trope in Spider-Man. I mean, him and MJ or him and MJ. I mean, anytime you think of one or two people when you talk Spider-Man love interest. You either talk Gwen Stacy and her death, or you talk MJ.
Yep.
I mean, and then you got the relationship that you can expound upon after Peter seeing what J. Jonah Jameson would do to win his favor back. You can explore that a little bit more. See, show the impact that all this had on him from a different perspective. So I think it was well written, well illustrated, and I look forward to see what comes out of it.
All right, very good. I do remember when I first announced Threat Level Red, one of the first people that chimed in was Benjamin J. Cologne, and he says, "You're not going down swinging or go down swinging?" I said, I hadn't read anything. So I said, "Is that an important part of the story arc?" And after reading Threat Level Red, I was like, yes, we need to do it. These issues, I believe, well, clearly they go hand in hand. Threat Level Red sets it up. Go Down Swinging is sends it home. All of the issues are a fun read, in my opinion. I think they're definitely something that I would suggest to just about any Spider-Man fan, not to mention anybody who's a fan of Spider-Man's rogues, Green Goblin, Doc Ock, who makes an appearance, and of course Carnage, Venom. All these great bits of history pop up throughout this series, and these two stories. I was excited. I think it was a very easy read. Had a lot of fun doing it. A lot of fun following the action. I wasn't lost. When we had a lot of soap opera stuff happen in here, specifically with Liz and the Osborn family. I mean, that you could do a whole podcast on the Osborn family and all the crap that goes on with them. But I had no problem following everything that was going on, even though there was all this extra stuff that was already set up in the background. So absolutely 100% agree. It's a great story. I'm glad I had the chance to read it. Glad I had a chance to talk about it with you guys. Ronnie Adams, what did you think of the story overall? Give us your final thoughts.
Loved it. Thought it was great. We give Marvel crap about restarting everything every so often, but this had a finality to it that this arc deserved, so they could restart over at number 1. And to see these two villains become one was just so freaking cool. And I'm terrified of Normie Osborn.
With a name like Normie, you're a psychopath already.
Right, he ain't got much going for him. And then all of a sudden, he looks like, the Exorcist's little brother. And it's just like, just terrifying.
Yep. Well, all right. That is our coverage of Threat Level Red and Go Down Swinging. Let's close up shop and get into plugs. We'll start with you, Ronnie Adams, Screaming Boy Podcast. Tell us all about it.
I have a show called the Screaming Boy Podcast. We have not done episodes recently because of a broken computer, but we should be getting that repaired and back on the air in your ears soon. I know I've said that a lot, but I have to keep my hope up as well. If you like pop culture, if you like movies, if you like video games, if you like TV, we talk about a little bit, comic books. We talk a little bit about everything on the Screaming Boy Podcast. We had 2 Radulich and Broadcasting Network exclusives. One of them was the closing of Toys R Us, how that affected us as grown men. But looking back on it, very, very nostalgic show. We get into what it meant to us as kids as Toys R Us, and then we get into a little more adult stuff of why it closed and things like that. A lot of fun. That was myself. That was Jesse Starcher. That was the mandated reporter Mark Radulich, and totally 80s Pat Mullen. Then we also had a show that has caused a lot of controversy on a Facebook group I'm on. A lot of the aluminum foil hats have come out, and also causes Jesse Starcher's blood pressure to rise.
My Agent Orange acts up.
Oh man, I'm telling you, that old man Starcher with his double barrel comes out. Get off my lawn. That was what's up. What's up, Movie Pass? What's going on? So we talk about Movie Pass and the change of their terms of service and everything, and which has changed once again here recently. It's not an outdated show, but it's definitely those TOS. That company, the wheels are always turning there. I mean, it's a little ridiculous.
Yes.
But as this airs, will have been back for one day from the Raleigh SuperCon, and that is a 3-day Comic-Con in Raleigh, North Carolina, where a lot of crap is going to happen. There's going to be a lot of people there, a lot of great vendors, a lot of great cosplay, fantasy cosplay wrestling, where you get to see Star-Lord wrestle Skeletor, which is going to be amazing.
That will be great.
Yes, I'm so excited for that. This is a different, a little different from what I've been to in the past. Raleigh SuperCon ends at about 4 or 5 o'clock, but then they have SuperCon After Dark, which starts at about 5 or 6. And there's a lot more stuff that goes on. Some of it a little more geared towards the adults. Some dance parties. They have a VIP party on Friday night. It's going to be a lot of fun. There are going to be a lot of Dave Bautista. A lot of the cast from Karen Gillan and Sean Gunn and Palm, whatever her last name is, from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Palm A. Granite.
Palm A. Granite is going to be there. William Zabka and Ralph Macchio from Karate Kid and the new YouTube series Cobra Kai are going to be there, along with Sensei Reese. I can't remember the man who plays, the man's real name, and I feel really bad about that. But Sensei Reese is going to be there. William Shatner, Henry Winkler, Alice Cooper. Gosh, there's so many people going to be there. It's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of wrestlers as well. But I want to touch on some of the, since this is source material, the comic podcast.
Yeah.
I want to touch on some of the featured creators that are going to be there, such as Neil Adams, who's done Batman, Deadman, Green Arrow, Green Lantern / Green Arrow, Superman, The Avengers, The Spectre, and X-Men. Richard Case, who is Doom Patrol, Shay the Changing Man, The Sandman. Peter David, Tom Fleming is going to be there. Larry Hama of G.I. Joe fame is going to be there. I mean, my goodness, Larry Hama.
Yeah.
As well as Tom King.
Uh-oh.
Oh, my goodness, Tom King. That's the one that has Josh Calandra swooning like a 14-year-old girl at an anime convention. So that happens, people. Jim Starlin is going to be there. Batman, Captain Marvel, Infinity Gauntlet, Infinity War, Warlock. I mean, Jim Starlin was the man who created Drax the Destroyer. Thanos wrote the Infinity Gauntlet trilogy.
Yep.
So there's a lot of really cool creators that are going to be there that I'm excited about. Like I said, cosplayers, your professional cosplayers, comedy troops. This has got a little bit for everybody. So a lot of it for everybody. So check out, if you're listening to this, you should also be going over to Screaming Boy Podcast Instagram, which is just called the Screaming Boy Podcast, or just called Screaming Boy Podcast. And check out some of the pictures that I have taken and placed on our Instagram. And you'll see what a fun time that you may have been to or may have missed. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. So check us out on any sort of social media: Instagram, Screaming Boy Podcast; Facebook, Screaming Boy Podcast; Twitter @Screaming Boy PR. Go on there, follow us, give us a like, subscribe on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, iHeartRadio. We are also right here on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network. With that, I turn it back over to you, Jesse Starsher.
Tremendous. Jayson Teasley.
Well, first and foremost, anybody who believes Young Frankenstein's better than Spaceballs can go to hell. Secondly, you can find me.
That was just.
I never said I was a nice guy. Anybody that knows me can. We're associates now. My wife's still mad at you, and I have to side with her.
And I hear the whip cracking in the background.
No, she has a checkbook and she controls all the money.
Oh, and once again, I hear the whip cracking in the background.
And I keep her happy because she doesn't complain. I spend $1,800 a year on fantasy football.
Good Lord. All right, get to your plugs, sir.
That being said, you can now find me as part of the roundtable on the W2M network called The Kickoff. There I'm a lot more serious. No, I'm not really. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, you can. It's basically a college football, pro football podcast where we talk about any and everything in the realm of the football aspect. Also, since Jesse became too big for me to bring him along,
here we go.
bring him along with the journey. I resurrected a fantasy football podcast with me and Mr. Brandon Biscobee over on W2M. Also, if you would like to follow anything wrestling related, sports related, movies, video games, or anything ever, you can check out the W2M network, and we will be obliged to fill your ear holes with quality information. That is all.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, go give the Radulich in Broadcasting Network Facebook page a like to stay up on top of all the great podcasts that we have to offer. Tons of different content out there. Comics, movies, MMA, wrestling. We talk TV shows. I mean, there's just about something for everybody there. So give that a like. I will be... Listen, you can follow me at Stiznarchy on Twitter. I will probably be doing something with the Unspoken Decade this weekend. We were supposed to record last weekend, but this weekend we're supposed to record something. We're going to be talking about the Hacker Files. So if you are a fan of 90s comics, I've been lucky enough to become a contributor to the UnspokenDecade.com. And other than that, guys, I am ready to call this a night. Jayson Teasley, first off and foremost, thank you very much for coming on here and discussing Threat Level Red and Go Down Swinging tonight. So I appreciate that. And Ronnie Adams.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming on here as usual and sticking around.
Always.
So with that being said, Ronnie Adams over there coughing it up. He's got allergies or something. I don't know.
Sorry. Yeah. I tried to cover it, but
you're all good. That's what editing's all about. And that's Jayson Teasley over there, who did not snot upon himself tonight. It doesn't sound like it anyway. At least he did a good job covering it up. And I am Jesse Starcher, and my eye itches. How's that? Does that tie us all together? We're out of here, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Young Frankenstein is still number 3.
in your world,
I asked Mel Brooks himself. He is amazing.
because he has time for you.
I asked Gene Wilder, too. I will not break out into song.
Jayson Teasley's song counter.
That's good.
And I will not drag this podcast down at any point.
Now that one, I don't believe.
Basically, if Venom was a KKK member.
Oh my God.
That's where I went.
That's not at all where I went at.
1,
Somehow.
Do not touch.
2,
Think of Venom, I touch myself.
Now, wait a second.
I also said I wouldn't derail the podcast. That's happened 3 times this far.
Yeah,
so
wow. Nothing but lies.
I'm a liar. Never trusted you. I almost said superstar Billy Graham.
Oh Lord.
Not the sharpest tool in the shed.
3,
She had her finger and her thumb in the shape of an L on her forehead.
4,
Flash.
No.
He'll save every one of us.
Is it better than Young Frankenstein? Yes.
Let it go, Teasley. No,
Hey,
no,
Ronnie.
Don't do
Ronnie.
it. Don't do it.
Ronnie,
5,
do you want to build a snowman?
No. I hate you.
I'm trying to steer the ship. It's not working.
6,
Staying alive.
Staying alive. And takes
Her panties dry up.
it's a word.
Follow that, Mr. Adams.
Jesus.
It's like the Sahara Desert.
Stop.
Like the
Stop. Then you've
Hey, he's talking to me.
listen. You've done nothing but interrupt me this whole podcast.
Tell us what are you awake, sir?
Well, I was wondering if Ronnie was ever going to hush.